everyone, Paisley here.
And Daily Civ here. Good to see you all.
So there's some major changes coming to Civilization 7, and we both got to playtest some of these new features in the recent Firaxis workshop that was open to over 1,000 players. And we thought the best way to share our thoughts with the wider community would be in a more open and honest conversation with each other. So we'll go over some of the major changes one by one and give our opinions and impressions of them. And I think there's a lot we agree on, but also a few points we disagree on. So hopefully we'll remain friends after this conversation.
Yeah, so Test of Time. This is the first you're hearing of it. It's pretty major. Playing this one Civ throughout all the ages. Look, I'll start off. I really like the implementation. As a Civ Switch fan, right, I was worried that this was going to, dilute that vision, sort of weaken what I thought was probably one of the greatest strengths of the game, which is sort of, being able to change strategies on the fly and making the late game significantly more interesting. I think they sort of undersell it here with the title. Playing as the same Civ through all the ages. It's any Civ in any age. So you can play as America throughout the entire game if you want. You could play as America for, 2 eras and then change in the third one. You could play as Rome throughout all three. So every Civ has got like its apex age now, right? In theory, that's where they're strongest. That's where they've got their full civic tree, as we know. If you're playing outside of that age, you essentially get these sort of generic trees that fit in with your attributes.
Well, I'll add one thing. So they have a generic 2 civics. The civilizations also get to keep some unique abilities, which I was really impressed with. They've allowed civilizations to have abilities in every age, making them relevant to every age. So I'm really happy with how they've implemented it.
The bit that I really loved is the first game I played was Inca. Every age you sort of persist with that civ, it upgrades all of their civics and kind of doubles down on what makes them unique, which I thought was really interesting. I thought the way that they integrated the civ's existing abilities as well as the sort of generic attribute trees was quite good.
The identity of the civilization felt really strong. I was playing with Assyria and Egypt in the exploration age, and one of the benefits is that you don't need to memorize a whole new set of abilities. So you get to keep your identity of your civ, and it's really helpful for simplifying gameplay. I was not a fan of the generic civics that they added. I thought it's another layer of things you have to remember, now have access to, and you're not going to have access to in the next stage, and you didn't have access to in the last stage. I think it complicated things too much.
I don't think they were particularly exciting. But I don't think they're meant to be. And I think this comes back to as well my sort of thoughts on, should civs be deliberately weaker outside of their apex age, or should every civ be viable in every age? And I would lean towards that they should be a little bit weaker, because you are this like aging civ. It's not really at the height of your power anymore, but you're still grinding through. Would you agree with that? Or do you think that if I'm playing Rome in, the modern age, I should still be sort of as strong as any other modern civ?
No, I think I completely agree with you. I think that even when we think about how it's worked in the past, you're not even less strong, you're irrelevant when you're playing outside of your age. Yeah. What they've done is, I think there's a possibility of making it a little bit more balanced. I don't think they should have new things.
My biggest takeaway when I first read these sort of patch notes was I couldn't believe how much effort they had put into a lot of this. And the way they implemented it is good, because even for people like me, I'm quite excited to try these civs in different ages. And from a gameplay perspective, we already had like thousands of combinations. Now we've probably got millions, right? Of which civ you take in each age, and it's like ridiculous now, just how many civs you can play with.
Yeah, but I think this is where they kind of missed the mark. People said they want to play as a single civ. What they meant is they don't want to do age transitions. They may have wanted both, but I think age transitions will still be a big factor in preventing those that want this one big classical game in enjoying what they've done here. And maybe we'll see that change in the future, age transitions smooth out a bit. But I think those two things have to go hand in hand to appease those that don't like the current version of the game.
The civ switching is almost like referral pain, where it's not the actual source. I think people think that it's the civ switching that they hate, but it's the hard stop. It's the taking you out to the main menu and all that sort of thing. I think the implementation of that leaves a lot to be desired in terms of the actual feeling of swapping your civ and the UI and everything around that.
Yeah, and that brings me to syncretism. I think we are probably completely opposed on this new feature. So basically the idea of syncretism is that when you are outside of your your apex age. Your civilization has this civic mastery that it can research, and once you do so, you get the ability to take a unique unit or an infrastructure from another civilization that would have been in its apex age at that moment, allowing you to have something that's relevant to the age. And I don't even know why they're doing this, to be honest. You tell me your thoughts.
Why are they doing this? That's a good question. I mean, this is so like left field. Who was asking for this, right? But I think it's a great idea. And why do I think that? It totally blows open the game in terms of combinations. The first thought is, okay, well, what's the most like broken thing you can pick from a civ? Let's say the Mayan Quarter. So you can play Inca in the ancient age and you can just yoink the Mayan Quarter, and now you have that in like, 3 or 4 of your cities. I just think that opens up so many possibilities for interesting strategies. It is optional, granted. You never have to engage with the system if you don't want to. I do think it's so strong. I don't think players will just ignore it and then they'll get mad that they are getting punished for ignoring it, basically, if they don't want to engage with this sort of weird alternate fantasy where the Incans took something from the Mayans. It is very odd. But why do you not like it?
Well, I mean, I am a min-maxer usually when I play, so I understand how that is appealing to people who like to just play Civ as a puzzle, as a game, and not as a recreation of history. But as a historian, my other side of my brain, when I was using the system, I grabbed the Abbasid quarter in Exploration Age as Assyria, and then I met the Abbasids, and then I was kind of weirded out by the fact that I've just taken their quarter, but they're still in the game. I think they do limit what you can grab based off of your connected options. So they do say that you can only grab infrastructure or unique military units from associated civilizations. So it's not a free-for-all, but I do think that this syncretism is better matched for people who do change their civilization. If you want to play as one civilization, I don't see the appeal of stealing another civilization's ability just in terms of role-playing.
I don't think it's going to convert anyone, but maybe it's like it's the first gateway drug for the never swappers to sort of expand their mind and think, what if I did try some other tools?
Tell us about Victories.
Yeah, so Victories, they've changed quite a bit. I've been very critical of the Victories in Civ 7 since the start. It's like one of the first things I sort of picked up on was just how unsatisfying a lot of them were. Culture's been, the standout in terms of it's like really shocking, like the relics and stuff. So they're now points-based. The cultural path, for example, in the Exploration Age, for example, you spread your religion to get those relics. In the Antiquity Age, you build the wonders to get points. All of this will contribute to your cultural sort of victory here in the sort of point system they've got now. And instead of collecting 15 artifacts and then you build the world's fan, you win. It's now all about competition. You can win as soon as the Exploration Age. If you have gotten such a lead, in such a cultural lead over your opponents, you can finish that early.
Right. I think we both have similar issues with the way victories work in Civ 7 right now. I did enjoy a lot more having control over my victory conditions from turn 1 of the game rather than something that you only think about in the modern age. This version of the victory conditions is a lot more flexible and it has a lot more potential, but there are some things I think that are unbalanced about the current victory conditions. Still need a bit of tweaking in my opinion. So for example, if you start conquering everyone, you're gonna win every kind of victory condition, including cultural and economic and military. The scientific one only unlocked once you could launch a mission to space. So before you could even finish the scientific victory, you're probably going to win the other ones. So there's some balancing issues that I'd like to see addressed with these victory conditions, but there's so much potential.
What we played and what they're showing here is like super, of all the things, super work in progress, I think. So yeah, I agree that I love being able to sort of work towards the victory from turn 1. I really like that. What I don't like is that it's brought back the feeling, for me at least, of kind of shift entering through the late game slog. You have one and you don't really have any way to speed it up potentially. Like your empire sort of reaches peak and all you have to do now is like no one else can catch you on the points and you're just kind of waiting for that threshold of, you have now won. Separate to this, I do like the idea of being able to win victories super early as well. But I think this has also made the problem of the modern age being like kind of weird and short even worse, because now if you're doing super well, you can just skip it altogether. And to your point as well, I think it has pushed the game towards a far more military dominated game. because military like sets other people back, right? Like when you dominate your neighbor, you're naturally bringing them down. Taking a military perspective to your neighbors is going to help you with every single victory regardless, because they're going to, their empire's going to be struggling. You're basically contributing towards culture as well. I don't know how I feel about that, but I'm like a bit of a SimCity kind of player. It's such a tough balance, right? Because you want the modern age to be like this culmination where, everything comes to a head and it's like this big epic moment where you do win. How do you make all the progress you've made for the first 2/3 of the game meaningful, but not sort of overpowering what the modern age is meant to be, where you're actually sort of, this is it, this is the race is on.
Yeah. Well, did you do the scientific victory? Did you give that a shot? It's the only one that opens up in the modern age?
I did. I did, yeah.
How did that feel?
And I will say, terrible. I liked that.
No.
I liked that I was building stuff and contributing throughout the game. I will say, you didn't just stumble into a science victory. It's no longer like once you just sort of finish the tech tree, it's an option for you, really. You did have to actually go out of your way and dedicate quite a few resources to getting to the threshold to build the spaceport. Basically, you do still have to.
Why did it feel awful?
Well, why can't I do it? Why can't I win in the exploration age? Why is that one victory singled out as the one that you can't win into a modern?
Well, this is what I'm saying. What if they were all in modern?
I think I'm supportive of that idea. I like the idea that, like, if you are so dominant in halfway through the game, but it's clear, like you're 9 times ahead or whatever, like ridiculous figure it is. It's like, all right, mercy rules, just get out of here, move on to the next one. But it just makes the modern age feel like a sort of tack on.
Yeah, I think one thing I may be really enjoying about the current version of Civ 7 is that the game is forcing me into modern age, and it kind of allows me to relax a little bit until we get there. Whereas this victory condition, I didn't feel relaxed. I wasn't feeling like, oh, I'm just doing my sandbox thing. I was more so thinking, okay, how do I win in the shortest amount of turns possible? We'll see how other people deal with these victory conditions or how they feel about it. But speaking about feeling railroady, that brings us to the final major change, which is legacy paths and triumphs. So legacy paths are totally out, and I think they may have a little bit thrown the baby out with the bathwater here. This is one of the changes I thought felt the worst for me out of all the new ones that are coming. Is that too harsh?
No, I think hey, if that's your opinion, get it out there.
So let me explain what I'm talking about. So for major triumphs, you have these missions that are very similar to the ones we've seen in the legacy paths. For example, build 7 wonders, assign 24 resources. And when you do those things, you achieve this thing called a major triumph, which gives you a dedication that you can then grab on age transition, something, again, we're very familiar with. You are limited. There's no point in taking every triumph. I'm not sure if they're going to change how many you can take with you or not. It doesn't seem to be mentioned, but it felt very strange to unlock this ability that you couldn't immediately use. And it felt very strange that then after unlocking all of these major triumphs, you could only pick a handful. And secondly, I think what they've thrown away with the legacy paths is a sort of sense of purpose for every age. These are supposed to give you a sense of purpose, but there's really no reason to do them, and there's so many options. It felt kind of pointless, and I found myself not even looking at these when I played the second time. I just did not care enough because they were so incidental to my games anyways. I would probably grab these 3 or more just playing the game, that I didn't even need to look at what they are. There were another set of triumphs that were instant rewards. Those felt a lot better, and you can see an example of one right here.
This was the area of the game I think I gave the most feedback to by far. I agree that the major ones feel oddly bad for how sort of, the fact that they're major, right? Just off the phrasing. And what the legacy paths did was give you a level of granularity, right? So you got rewarded at 2, 4, and 7 wonders, to use that example. Not immediately, but you got the pop-up. It felt quite nice. The triumph system kind of lacks this. There's no granularity in any of these. You either get them or you don't. And as Paisley sort of mentioned, you only get a handful. So there comes a point where you just sort of stop paying attention to a lot of them. The minor triumphs, however, which, indicated by this instant reward here, some of these are competitive as well, which I quite liked, actually. So I think we've got a screenshot here that says you'd be the first to research flight. The reward is like shocking. I mean, this is what I wrote about quite a bit. It's +4 production aerodromes. I mean, what is that reward, right? Like, it's just not interesting. If they're going to rework this system, this would be be a great time to sort of take a bit of a closer look at a lot of these bonuses and make them significantly more interesting than just, really simple stat bonuses. I'm never going to get excited by getting +4 culture on my wonders the next stage. That one's one of the better ones. The piety one right next to it, Orphic Mysteries, I think is a shocker, where plus 25% production towards temples. I mean, who is getting excited about that, right? The legacy path system wasn't unsalvageable. It just needed a bit more care put into it. And maybe there was like 2 or 3 legacy paths per age. That would have been, quite good, I think, to sort of pick your path, which one you went down. I think that could be an interesting way. But anyway, suffice to say, it's gone, right? There's no point talking about legacy paths. They are gone. So,
Makes me so sad. It makes me so sad. I agree. I would have loved to see, 2 or 3 ways of achieving the same legacy path. That way they don't have to think about new bonuses for every single new way, but you were not railroaded to doing the same thing every single game. I don't know. The granularity is such a great point. I think they're going to run into a problem where coming up with even more of these triumphs and even more rewards, they're going to run out of things to provide a player. And you already see that here when I've noticed some overlaps with abilities we already have in the game. So for example, we have a screenshot here. Commanders earn 25% experience. Grace already gets that, and there's city states that already provide that. And so how many times am I going to have plus 25% experience to commanders? Do you know what I mean? I think less is more here. I did not need more rewards. I just needed more ways to achieve the same rewards.
I mean, this is such an early system though. I feel bad sort of criticizing some of the balance on this, because this is clearly a proof of concept, right? Will the final reward be 25% commander experience? I hope not.
But that's a great point. These rewards and these dedications are all subject to change. Probably they will be changing because they wanted to test out how does this system feel for the players rather than what are the exact minutiae of the details. I get the criticisms of the legacy path.
I will say though, we are seemingly outliers on a lot of these changes. I mean, because the feedback for this change was mostly positive, and even sort of chatter you've seen online since then has been really positive towards this system. I do think that give it a few weeks, I wonder how positive people will still be about it, or if it will fall down the same sort of line of every game you just have these same triumphs. And one of the common ideas that was thrown around was to, have a random set of these come up every game. But then wouldn't you feel cheated if you picked Hatshepsut Egypt and then you didn't roll the wonder triumph, would you just re-roll until you kept getting the right triumphs? What I think one of the biggest things that may have been lost was civs having their own unique legacy paths conditions, kind of like Inca, like Mongolia, which I thought was one of the coolest parts, that the most untapped potential, civs having the legacy path. Now they do kind of retain some of this. So Inca, for example, still has your treasure convoy ability, and that helps you towards the victories, for example.
I tried to get a feel for this idea of what if these major triumphs actually gave you points towards your victory condition, so giving you more control over how you can win the game.
That would give you a reason to, keep trying to tick them off. And I think that would be a good thing, because I think the interesting sort of objectives somewhat, I agree, it just doesn't feel good to complete triumphs after you've already gotten all the ones you need already. It's very unsatisfying. I mean, that sounded like a really negative character assassination of all of these changes. Hopefully it didn't come across too much like that. But I mean, I think these changes are broadly all really good, and sort of in the right direction, like you said. We just have a lot of thoughts. We just have a lot of feedback because obviously we are very passionate about this stuff and we want the system to be better. So that's where we're sort of coming from. The best compliment I can give is that it's really hard to go back and play the live game until these changes come out now, right?
Yeah, thank you so much, Daly, for agreeing to have this conversation, and I'm really glad to hear your side of things. We should also say thank you so much to Firaxis for opening up this workshop and for giving us early access to some of these screenshots so we can get this information out to you all. We'd love to hear your opinions in the comments. We'll definitely be reading through those, so let us know what you think.
Perfect. Thank you very much, everyone, and we'll see you next time.